As a Yu-Gi-Oh player who was interested in the game as a kid because, ooh, shiny cardboard, and then dropped it for about over a decade before picking it up a few years ago, I hear a lot of older players talking about past formats that ruined the game forever, their eyes glazing over as they remember horrors that they hope are buried forever. Teledad format costing them thousands of dollars to stand a chance, Pre-errata Chaos Emperor Dragon teaming up with Yatagarasu to just stop any plays, Shockmaster and Azathoth just existing. There are a lot of examples, but one that people always seem to go back to is the Dragon Ruler Spellbook format. Two incredibly broken decks that only managed to not be tier 1 thanks to the other being just as strong. Sounds kinda familiar. Those decks were so incredibly powerful that their main cards are still banned to this day. Until now. That's right, as I'm sure you've heard, Spellbook of Judgment is back at 1. The card that, according to those who played in the format, was a +7 accompanied by an unoutable floodgate. Sounds scary, right? Well, let's find out what it's really like. After all, the game has changed a lot in the time Spellbook of Judgment has been banned. So for those like me who weren't around during the format, what exactly does Judgment do? Well, when you activate it, it does nothing. Yep, on activation it technically doesn't do anything at all, instead creating a sort of floating effect where it listens for how many spell cards you activate for the rest of the turn. The actual effect happens in the end phase, and that's where it starts to get juicy. For every spell card activated this turn after Judgment resolves, and this does actually count your opponent's quick plays if applicable, you can add a spellbook card from your deck to your hand. So if you activate 4 spells, you get 4 new ones. It's pretty nice. Then you also get to special summon a spellcaster from your deck, whose level is equal to or lower to the amount of cards you just added. Now, while you could use that to get a spellbook monster out, they're honestly not that good. And since Yu-Gi-Oh is all about stopping your opponent from playing the game, instead we summon Jowgen the Spiritualist. He just stops everybody from special summoning. So are the old stories true? Well, it's more of a +3 or 4 than a +7, and Jowgen is fairly easy to out by any normal summoned monster. But that's where the rest of the deck comes into play. Your main gameplay loop is to get to Judgment as early as possible thanks to Spellbook of Secrets or Spellbook Magician of Prophecy, affectionately nicknamed Blue Boy. Then you want to use at least 3 more spells that turn to be able to summon a Jowgen, while cycling through spellbooks until you can get to Spellbook of Fate, usually by using Spellbook of the Master to copy secrets. Then set Fate, search a bunch of cards in the end phase, and then use Fate next turn to banish whatever your opponent tries to normal summon. You can even loop this every turn thanks to Spellbook of Eternity, so really your biggest problem is your opponent using back row to remove Jowgen. Spellbook of Wisdom helps with that to some extent by giving it protection, but it's not really a perfect lock, admittedly. Still, we do have some other tech that gives the deck a higher ceiling, as well as some consistency boosters that didn't exist back in the day. Want to see them? Well, let's take a look at the deck. Here it is, overwhelmingly green like any Spellbook deck should be. However, we'll be starting with the monsters. As your best, and pretty much only normal summon, you run 3 Blue Boy. He searches basically anything in the deck, so yeah, you really want to open this. Then sadly we do need to run 2 Jowgen. This is because Judgment only summons from the deck, so if you draw it, your main win con immediately dies if you only run 1. By the way, if you go second and do manage to bait a few disruptions, don't forget that it can also discard a card to destroy all special summoned monsters. That could occasionally come up. Magician's Souls, together with its Searcher, Illusion of Chaos, is a great card for the deck. It lets you get a spellcaster on the field without needing your normal summon, and it can discard once per turn spell cards to draw you up to 2 new cards. The extra body is also useful for going into the Link 2 Crowley, which could be difficult otherwise. Next is a potentially controversial choice, but hear me out. When else am I going to be able to put Silent Magician in a deck? I like this card, don't at me. But more seriously, it's often a spell negate with 4000 or so attack, synergizing very well with Judgment's end phase draws. It can be used to turn a Souls or a Crowley link into something more useful, while still being a spellcaster for the cards that need that. Still not convinced? Well then it's a Small World bridge? That convinces everyone, right? Small World is pretty nice though. It searches any of the monsters you might want, since all of them basically only share the spellcaster type and nothing else. If you don't need it, it's fodder for souls as discard, otherwise it's a blue boy or a silent magician, depending on which one would be most useful. Then, after the upstart goblin, which is just a free activation of a spell card, we have a ton of spellbook cards. Judgment is the most important, of course, and you'll want to play as many copies of it as the ban list allows for. Then our three ofs. Knowledge, our Allure of Darkness-like card, Secrets, which is our spell Stratos, Master, which usually just copies secrets, and then Fate, which is our one and only piece of interaction, giving us a non-targeting banish of any card. After that, it's mostly just names to make the deck run more smoothly. Eternity is the exception, letting us get back to Spellbook of Judgment you banish with Fate, letting you loop your main play. Starhole gives you extra attack, which can eventually help you get to lethal. Crescent is a mixed bag, being pretty nice to open with, but pretty bad at any other time. Wisdom and Power give you protection and extra attack respectively, but also they're just easy cards to activate in case you aren't up to using 3 spells after Judgment yet. The extra deck is mostly filler besides the link to Crowley. You'll often make this with Souls and Blue Boy, and it'll get you an extra spellbook card, so it is worth going for. Turn it into a Silent Magician when you're done with that effect, since afterwards it doesn't really do too much. Relinquished Anima is the second most useful if your opponent forgets to play around it. The rest is just your usual generic suit of extra deck, including some Charmers that we could possibly summon. You might end up using some of these, especially to try and climb up into an access code talker, since otherwise going for lethal is pretty slow. Now, since spellcasters do have pretty good support, we do have some choices here. If you're still not convinced by Silent Magician, you're wrong. You can use Secret Village of the Spellcasters instead. The downside is that if they remove your spellcaster and you can't normal summon another one, you've straight up lost to your own floodgate. If you are convinced by Silent Magician, perhaps a little bit too much, you can run her level 8 version to give yourself a floating effect if she gets removed. You can also use Silent Burning as a good spell to discard with souls, since it will get you to draw but also search a Silent Magician. Forbidden Droplet also works well with that package and is just generally very important for going second. Finally, if you want to try and play a more monster-focused version, Temperance can summon some interesting cards from your deck, like Vert to protect Jaugen by boosting its attack, or Hyena for targeting protection and a pop. They didn't quite make the cut in this version, but if you want to see a full-on Witchcraft the Spellbook deck, make sure to tell me in the comments. And so that's the deck. Let's have a look at it in action, shall we? Time for some replays. But first, if you've been enjoying this video so far, don't forget to like it and subscribe. Anyway, this first hand is just to show you an example of the basic goal for the deck, using as few cards as possible. You don't need these exact cards, but you do need a way to Spellbook of Judgment and then the ability to use 3 more spells. Here, let's start with our normal summon, getting Judgment. We then use it so we can start counting our spells. Now to get up to 3 spell uses, we use Secrets to search Master, and then Master to copy Secrets, searching Fate for an extra interruption. Now you just need any third spell. Here we had Wisdom as an example, since it's easy to just activate, but remember it can be any spell, not just a spellbook spell. Now set Fate, and when you end your turn, you'll get to add 3 spellbooks to your hand and summon a Jaugen. A good choice for ones to add to your hand are Eternity, Master, and Secrets. You'll be banishing Judgment and 2 other spells with Fate in order to banish an opponent's card, so Eternity and then Master can recycle the Judgment and another card, while Secrets can just be whatever you need the most. Now here's how it plays out in a random hand. Starting with Judgment is nice since it will give us the maximum pluses at the end of the turn. Starhole is also best played early so that the attack boost is as high as possible. Then summon Souls by dumping Illusion, and use it as fodder for Knowledge. Normal summon Blue Boy, and then search Secrets, which gives us a Master for the maximum spells used. It copies Secrets to get a Wisdom, since we can use that easily. Now in the end phase, we'll completely refill our hand, while getting our Floodgate and our Interruption, and also being able to easily loop that next turn as well. Finally, here's one that uses some of the tech cards we have. Start with Illusion to search Souls, and then summon Souls while dumping that Illusion. Then you can play Crescent, since we don't have a spellbook in the graveyard yet. You don't quite get to choose the outcome, so here we got a Knowledge. That means that we do need to use our normal summon for some searches, so we search secrets before linking into a Crowley to add another spellbook, which ends up being Fate. Since we still need our Judgment, we search it with secrets and then activate it. Master then copies secrets, getting us a Wisdom. Wisdom is then fodder for Knowledge, drawing us both a Star Hole and a Power. We can now play the Star Hole before tributing Crowley for Silent Magician, using Power for another spell use and then setting the Fates. In the end phase we get our Searchers, which power up the Silent Magician a turn, and of course our Jowgen. Now on top of the Floodgates and Interruption to protect it, we also have a Spell Negate to help with any removal your opponent might play in spell form. Now just to show you the general loop, you'll be using Fate and banishing Judgment as a cost. I negate that since this is just for show. But on your turn, you'll then be able to use Eternity to get back the Judgment, before doing as many spell activations as possible, making sure you end with a huge hand to swing for as much damage as possible with Silent Magician, hopefully getting you to game by the end of your third turn. So that's the deck! Are you going to try a Spellbook deck now that their best card is back? Or do you still hate the deck because of Dragon Roller format? Tell me in the comments below, and while you're down there, don't forget to like and subscribe. Special thanks to my tier 3 patron Distran. The link to that is in the description. Thanks for watching!